Hello and welcome to another presentation. In this presentation I'm going to answer some questions as I've gotten some comments regarding my previous presentation on the Cestui Que Vue Trust or Cestui Que Vue Act of 1666, and this should dispel any of the myths surrounding that. If we look at the first part of the Act, it says an act for redress of inconveniences by want of proof of the decease of persons beyond the sea, or absenting themselves upon whose lives, estates, do depend. So this is telling you that the people that have property held under lease or a contract want some sort of a redress for an inconvenience. Now, we all know that there was an inconvenience in 1666, given the fact that London burnt down. Okay? So this act basically states that the people that had these leases or contracts wanted to build or redevelop or redistribute their property. And they couldn't do so because a person, or persons being family, may want to come back and get their property back. So just because the fire happened doesn't give way for the leaseholder to distribute or redistribute your property. You had basically 7 years, if you were absent, to reclaim your property, because it says right here. Now, there was a bit of a problem, and normally when you make a claim, you have to prove your claim is valid. So if you said that the person was deceased, you would need to prove that. Well, given the fact that people have went on various projects or various things against the municipality or with the municipality, they would have to prove that the person was dead or not, which would become very hard to do. We don't have electronic mail and stuff like that back in 1666, and therefore the onus became the other way, that a person that was gone would have to prove that they had right to the property before they could reclaim it. Now, if we read through the word Cestui Que Vue Act or trust basically means beneficiary. So you would have to prove that you were the beneficiary to a property, given the fact that you had a lease or ownership or some other document. And if that didn't work right and you couldn't prove it, then the lords of the manors that have granted the state by lease or one or more contracts would have the right to redistribute that and get revenue from it. You can pause this screen and read it for yourself. I've often suggested that a person should, in fact, read the statute prior to trying to do anything, because many times the person will take false information from the internet and then try to apply it and then wonder why something didn't go right in a court of law. Okay? Now, because it was almost impossible for the leaseholder to prove their claim, they changed it around and said, okay, if you want to claim your property, you have a certain time frame in which to do it. Now, this is a short presentation of 5 slides, so it won't take too long. Now, the Cestui Que Vue have gone beyond the sea. This is when people stood up for the British monarch and tried to actually go to war or claim other properties. Now, many times they were killed in the line of, or in an act of war, but many times they would just find a new piece of property and then settle on it. And the leaseholder back home, back in the UK, wanted to basically redistribute their property. Now it says where the first lords and manors have granted an estate by lease for one or more life or lives. So in no way does this lease thing apply to a person having a trust fund or a trust account. Okay, that's false information. Okay, and the estates have been granted have gone beyond the sea, or so absent themselves for many years. Leaseor and reservationers can't find out such persons, be alive or dead, whereas the leaseor reservations have been held out possession of tenement. So it's telling you right there, the leaseor has been holding out some sort of a tenement contract, or basically a lease contract, for many years. Okay, and then the estate depend on the dead. And regarding the leaseor's reservationers, they've brought an action to recover their tenement. So they're bringing an action wanting their property back for redistribution. It's got nothing to do with having a trust account. Okay? And since it's almost impossible for them to discover whether that individual or family was alive or dead, they gave the family 7 years in order to prove that they were alive and still had interest in the property. Now, such person or persons who live or lives such estate have been or shall be granted aforesaid shall remain beyond the sea, elsewhere absent themselves in this realm by space of 7 years. So that tells you they've had 7 years to be able to reclaim their property, and if they haven't done so, then the leaseholder can, in fact, redistribute the property. You must remember that most of the property in England, or at least in London rather, was burnt down. And it says right here, an action commenced for recovery tenements by leaseors or reservationers, case of pension persons upon whose life or lives such estates depend, shall accordingly be naturally dead, and in every action brought for the recovery of said tenement by leaseors, reservationers, their heirs or assignees, the judges before whom action shall brought, shall direct the jury to give their verdict as if the person remained beyond the seas or is otherwise absenting themselves and or were dead. So it has nothing to do with having some sort of trust account. I hope this clarifies the issue regarding the Cestui Que Vue trust, and hopefully people will comprehend what I've just explained, which I explained in my other video, but there was some controversy regarding that. So as I suggested earlier in many of my presentations, kindly read the statute and then draw your conclusions from it. By doing so, you'll make sure you're not heading down the wrong path. I'm currently working on a book regarding council tax. If you wish to be notified when it's complete or have any other comments or questions, I can be reached at that email. Donations can also be made by PayPal at the above address, and you can use your credit card or bank information, which is held by PayPal, to make donations for my efforts. I thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you found it useful, and I'll bring you more information as time and resources permit. Thank you, and have a great day.